we can get on with the presentation. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Nicole Jardin. I am the Associates. And we're going to run through our software tool called CAPPS. And this is our new release. And in this new release, what we tried to do is to add more customization, more flexibility, because really ultimately we're trying to make sure that people can get those updates going and much more readily and more easily. Joining me as well is Sue Hopkins from our Wyoming office. And she's got many years of experience in program management. And this is exactly the target audience for this CAPPS software tool. So let me jump right in. Hopefully I'm sharing and all's going well. And I just want to jump in with a really quick poll. And the first question really I'm curious to see is, how are you guys doing updates? So we have a variety of clients, of course, and they do updates all different ways. So meetings, they get updates from XCRs, Excel, emails, and some, to be perfectly frank, I know you might look at that. We don't do updates and say that's crazy. We do have clients who actually never really update their schedule. So I'm going to show the results of the people who are able to vote in, and it's pretty interesting. It's quite a mixed bag. Meetings, Excel. So yeah, that's sort of what we're finding across our clients as well. So what we're trying to do here with the CAPPS tool, of course, is to make those updates easier to do. If we can get updates going more often, it makes things so much better, because what we're dealing with more and more in our project management space is we've got complicated, large programs, maybe multi-phase projects with different groups funding the projects. And we could have folks all around the world contributing to the actual project. Designers in other parts of the world, specialty sourcing, so special equipment sourced from other parts of the world. So it becomes really tricky, not only to put a plan together, but getting it updated. And the other thing that we find is the skill set. Skill set of the teams can be all over the place. If you have a small roadwork contractor, they may have Excel as their, most elaborate software tool in their company. It's quite conceivable. So we've got not only different skill sets, we've got different systems, and you can't always expect every one of your project contributors to be able to work in P6, right? It doesn't always hit the mark. And if someone's only working for a few weeks on the project, again, you can't expect them to have the skill set. So we've got to be able to adapt to that, but we still need those updates coming at us. If we can't get our updates in a timely manner, then it really makes it difficult for us to streamline what we're trying to do and to make sure that we know exactly where we're at on our project, not only on the critical path activities, but on the near critical path activities. Otherwise, impacts, delays, busts in the schedule, you're just going to miss them. And that's what we don't want. And we don't want to be working with old data. So I'm going to just do another quick question here, because this one is also one that's really interesting to me. How often do you actually get updates done? And we have that we don't again, but really it's interesting because people strive to do a lot of updating, but monthly is really common. And what we're trying to do is get weekly and even daily if we can. I'm glad no one voted we don't, so I'm going to show you the results again. What we're trying to do with CAPPS is enable you to do those updates much more readily. So if I have 10 minutes at the end of my day and I can get a few updates in, this is what we're trying to do with CAPPS. And I hope with this version, even more than the last, we've hit the mark on making that easy. Okay, so we saw monthly. Monthly is really common. And what we see with our clients who do monthly updates is often the data is, really realistically, even up to 6 to 8 weeks old. And on a large program, that could be a lot of delays, a lot of impacts that are not getting addressed readily and in a timely manner. So let's look at CAPPS. Let me explain to you how CAPPS works. So first and foremost, CAPPS can be deployed within your own company. It can be a hybrid, so CAPPS could be in the cloud, P6 can be in your company, or it can be a full cloud offering. And the cloud can be all hosted, let's say, by Emerald, or it can be a combo of P6. Let's say you're in the, perhaps you're in the Oracle Cloud. That P6 can be up there, and then CAPPS can be within a different cloud, one that we provide or a different one. Okay, so it's very flexible on the deployment. And really what we try to do with CAPPS is to make it easy for people to update. So it's web-based, so you don't have to install anything on your computers. It's tabular, so it looks kind of like Excel and very tabular based, so very easy, not a lot of learning curve. But we didn't want to break any security. So the security is still controlled through the P6 administration. And what you're going to find is we tried to build all of it inside of P6 as much as we could, so that, again, you weren't having to deploy more software tools and learn all sorts of new software tools. That's really was our driving force. And of course, it's self-serve. So when I log in, I get the stuff I need that I'm allowed to access. I can do my updates, even if it's only 2 updates right now that I have time to do, I can get those in, send it off, and do some more tomorrow, okay, or in 10 minutes from now. So it's really flexible and dynamic. That's what we were striving for. And then what we have when you send those in, so I get my updates in, I submit them. We have 2 layers in terms of approval. So we didn't want to make this a big make work project with a bunch of workflows and different approvers. We just wanted to make this simple. So we do actually allow approving in CAPPS, but we also could just send the data into P6 and let the P6 folks approve and accept changes. So we kind of have a very simple approval model. That was our objective, was to make updates faster, not get into rejection and resubmits and, get into an endless loop of not being able to get your updates in. So that was our objective in designing it. So you submit, the stuff gets into P6, we accept, we reschedule like you would be doing. So, you could be rescheduling every day, which would be amazing, at least every week. And we want to get away from that monthly thing. So more often, that's what we're shooting for. You check where there's some busts, why did we start late? Why did we finish late? Why does it look like we're suspended? Those sorts of things, all the stuff that you already do in P6. And then you keep going, right? You address the issues, do your thing like you do in P6, rework the logic, whatnot, and off you go. Okay, so our focus with this tool was to make it simple, make the updates easier, get those into the P6 team's hands as fast as possible without making it hard to learn. That was really our key objective. Okay, so let's take a look. So first, I'm just going to give you the kind of the lay of the land. So what we use is P6 coding. So again, we're trying to use the stuff that you guys are probably doing already. So things like, do you have a vendor tagged against each activity with an activity code? Are you using maybe resource codes, right? So stuff that you probably use already. And then, do you need certain tasks approved or not? Okay, so not every task necessarily needs to get into CAPPS and needs to get status that way, okay? So again, trying to use all the good stuff that's already in P6 and make it easier for your team. From there, we use layouts and views. So I'm going to show you that real quick here. So we're really focused on using stuff you're doing already. So we've got layouts, we've got views if you're using the web, and data is going to push into those. We're going to use standard filters that you're probably using already to review, approve, and keep going. Okay, so that's really the way that we approach this tool. We want it to be lightweight. We want it to move and adapt quickly with you, and hopefully we've hit the mark. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to switch over to CAPPS. So seeing is believing. So let's walk through some scenarios. So I'm going to switch and show you CAPPS. Now I'm using my laptop. Shannon, please let me know if this is too darn small. I can try and zoom in a bit, and let me get this thing out of my way.
No, so it looks good, Nicole.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's walk through. So I'm logged into CAPPS. So I logged in. The login is secured via P6. So I'm not allowed to touch or see things that I'm not supposed to. Okay, and the security is controlled inside of P6. Now let me, before I jump into doing some updating, let me try and explain to you the example that I have here in P6. So first and foremost, I have a few projects. They're just simple little example projects. I have 4 projects, and those are the ones that I said I am going to be using CAPPS on, okay? So we can mix and match. Some of your projects you may not be using CAPPS. Some of your projects you might. And so you can tell CAPPS which ones you do want to use that tool as the updating method. And in terms of giving the right activities, the right projects to the folks logging in to CAPPS, I have lots of different ways we can handle this. So if you know that your project manager is going to be doing your updates, as an example. So in this example, Nicole Jardin is the PM, and she is going to be doing the updates on 3 of these, and not on this one. Maybe I don't know who the PM is as of yet. Okay, so that's one method. So I'm going to give all the activities in that project to Nicole to update. Now, after Nicole does the updates, I am going to allow this PM, EAI PM user to approve it, okay? So that's one option if you know that that's how you're going to handle your updating methodology. But we don't want to handcuff you to say it's all or nothing. So we could also use the activities. So I've got more than one project open here, and I've gone another layer deeper in flexibility, if you will. So I could also say that for one project, here's a good example. Let me just make that a little wider. Again, Shannon, please let me know if this is too small to read. Here we go. Here's an example where it's not just one approver. I have different, perhaps lead engineers or lead project managers, especially on a big program, you may split it up, who need to do the actual approvals. Okay, so very flexible in how we've tried to build it so that you can mix and match to what makes good sense for your own group. Now, the other thing I've done here is I've modeled that I have certain vendors performing this work, okay? So I think I'm filtered. Yes, I am filtered. I am filtered on one vendor. So these are all the activities that this engineering company X is going to be working on. But again, it's very flexible. I don't have to use only one code. I could use more than one code. So for example, if this engineering company has 3 different crews, as I'm seeing here. They've got crew 1, crew 2, and crew 3. I could even subset this down to allow different crew leads to do the updates. Okay, so we try to use things that we think you're using already anyway. Take advantage of that coding that you're probably doing already in P6 to divvy up those activities. Okay, so that's trying to give you the lay of the land. And as you saw, it's multiple projects at once. So I can certainly hand over more than one project to my updating folks. So in this case, it's NJPM to get those statuses through. So that's the framework. That is the framework that we're using to get these activities on my CAPPS updating screen. So let me explain the admin, just a little bit of admin needs to take place here. So when Nicole logs in, I was just logged out too long. So sorry, let me just get back right in there. Okay, so I'm logging in, and as you saw there, I can point to more than one database. In a future release, we're actually going to allow combining more than one database into one list, okay? But right now they're separate. So when I log in, it uses the P6 security that I've set up for this particular user. And the very first thing, this is admin, so it's done once. So I give the framework of what Nicole should be seeing when she logs in, okay? So I tell which projects, and I can use project codes to do that filtering, or, you know, if I need to mix and match an EPS structure, I can do that as well. Okay, so we could do one or the other. I think a lot of people find using codes quite easy to understand. So that's the example I've got in this case. Then I can say which activities should she actually even update. Now, for example, milestones. I have milestones on there, but you may have milestones automatically updated based on tasks that come before them, okay? So in that case, I could just filter those off the screen, okay? I can have level of efforts and WBSs also showing or not. So that's what we're giving you here, is the flexibility to make sure the updates are going to be done the way that you want. Then I've got to look ahead. And in this newest version, because we've got so much great on-screen filtering, I just said, give me everything that's coming up in the next year and let Nicole filter on screen however she wishes. That's really what I've done there. Okay. So these filters are really easy to build. You can copy one filter to another user, and here's the list of users. So it goes really quickly. And as I said, this is something that you don't need to do every day. This is just the setup. So I'll go back to where I do my real updating. Okay, so this is the screen that you're in 99% of the time. If you're a reviewer and approver, you've got a slightly different flavor, but mostly it's this sort of framework. Let me try and explain what you're seeing on the screen. So we have, of course, a grid, and we have our activities. Plus, we have tabs for resources and expenses and steps. And of course, all four of those may be things that you want to use in P6 so you can get your updates done, okay? So steps are a fantastic way to do some updating, especially with physical percent completes. But you know, it's not easy to get steps in people's hands. So this is one way that you can start to rethink how you get your updating done with using CAPPS, because now you can easily update the steps. Okay. So we'll touch on that in a second. So then for informational purposes, we have the logic so that you can see the impacts of some of these activities. So there's no updating per se at this time in predecessors and successors window, but it's there for information. And then we have this really handy deviation, change order, and approval window. And I'll come back to this in just a second. Okay, so this gives us a really good snapshot of what's going on with the activities that have been submitted so far. Now I'll come back to that because let's get some updating. Let's run through some updating first. Okay, so what we have here is our activity screen. This is the place that probably you're going to spend the bulk of your time, especially if you're not using any resources and expenses in P6. And of course, if you are, you're going to use these other three quite extensively. But let's start with activities. So I've got my multi-project here, and I've got my work breakdown, and I've got a handful of different columns across here. Now, I may not have time right at this moment to update every single activity that's on my plate, okay? So for those of you who do your statuses in a meeting, let's just touch on that idea, okay? So here I am, I'm the PM, and I'm gonna have a meeting with my engineering X company, and I wanted to chat through their update. Now, I might not have time, I might need to talk to different folks for different projects. So I have these 3 projects right now, and I may only have time to talk to the PM for the first project. So I can just filter that right down. So now I have here what's upcoming for engineering X company. And I may choose to just look at activities in the next little while. Okay, now this is a demo database, so perhaps I don't have all that much exciting dates on here. So let's say I want to look at everything coming up before, planned to be before, let's say the end of February, for example. So I can easily set that date range. And in my case, it was just these ones anyway, so it's not changing anything, but there you go. So you can have these filters. We've got a little different colored filters on there so you can see that I've got those filters in place. And now I might want to get ready for my meeting so I can run through this where they're at on these activities. Okay. Now, because I want to get ready for that meeting, some of these fields I may not really need on my screen while I'm doing that update. Okay. So for example, I'm going to move this WBS over and out of my way. So let me just go ahead and scroll over so you can see that. So I'm going to just get this out of my way so I can get my updating ready. Whoops, let's just move it. Actually, let's just do it this way then. I'll move this way. So I'm going to use my durations, and I'm going to want to put some notes in here. So I'm going to get those over there. And I may need to suspend and resume. So that's, of course, something that's a way that you might do updating. And so I can go ahead and move those over. I'll get my expected finish there because I may use that as well. And I'll go ahead and get those over there. So that gives me a little bit better updating window, if you will. Now, I may not need quite as much room on the project, so you could also move that out of your way and kind of get what you need for that meeting ready. Okay. Now let me try and explain a little bit more about what you're seeing on this screen. So I filtered down just to one project, just to one vendor, and I filtered my date range. But I'm also seeing a little bit of helpful info right here. So I can see that this vendor has a lot of critical activities. So obviously I'm going to want to monitor these updates pretty darn closely, okay? Because anything that is delayed is going to delay that project. So that's an important one. I can see that some are started, of course, some are not started yet. So I'm going to want to understand why the heck we didn't start this thing. It should have started before Christmas. And so you're seeing that here, that kind of info. And I can see that this one has been completed. And this field here tells me, hey, this was already submitted. So that little I lets you know that it was updated, it was submitted, but somebody hasn't reviewed it yet. So I can see that right here, okay? Okay, so those are pieces of data that we've put in there to try and help you understand what's going on, not only with the activity, but also with the updating and the submitting through CAPPS on that activity. Okay, so let's kind of run through some examples of what's going on here with the update. I'm just going to make this field a little wider so you can see that we've got the ability to put some notes in there. And, you know, you want to definitely log what's going on, why they might have suspended and resumed, and maybe why they're forecasting to run a little later than you hoped. Okay, so that's why we've got that inside of there. Okay, so let's look at the first activity. So these are in there from the last update. As I mentioned, this lets us know that an update was done, but it didn't get approved. So we'll just continue on with that. Maybe the person was on holiday. That shouldn't really be the case. Of course, you should be getting them through, but you know, it might happen that I get 2 updates done real quick and I might want to modify it. So all that works. Okay, so let's touch on this. So we've got some examples here. So this one was started. It should have been finished long ago. It's not finished as of yet. And let me just go ahead and get the remaining duration a little wider so we can see that. And we're saying we still have 20 days to go. So we're in a meeting, or we give them access to do this. You know, you've got lots of options. And they're saying that we've got 160 hours, or if I move off, you can see there's a conversion to 20 days. So I can type in 20 days and there's a conversion that's going on. So let's say, hopefully I got some progress on it and I think there's only 10 days left. Okay. And I can certainly update this note and get the feedback there. So this one was supposed to have started, and hopefully in the meeting we're discussing, they're saying, yeah, we got it started finally. Perhaps it's a little bit late. I can go ahead and get my date in there. For those of you who do hourly scheduling, we can get right down to the hour of the day if we need to. Okay, so we've got that capability, and set the actual start that took place on this activity. Okay, and again, we can forecast what is left. So it has been saying 1 day, but maybe we're realizing we're going to take a little longer, and we can go ahead and get that RD in there. Again, we can put it in the note and get a more updated note in there. Okay, we got back onto this week. Okay, so again, you can get your note in there and you can save it up, and that's going to feed into P6 as well. We started it and we're forecasting an expected finish. Okay, so our tool allows you to put expected finishes in there. And of course, expected finish can do a forecasting on change your duration in P6. So you can use that methodology as well. This example, we've already put a suspend date on there. Now, maybe we got back to the activity and we can resume it, okay? And so that would be fantastic. So we're getting back on that and we can get the resume in there, okay? Now, there, of course, is some validations that we have to make sure are happening, right? So you can't resume if you don't have a suspend, obviously. So we've got validations inside of here to make sure that you're following the business rules that P6 is expecting as well. And on this activity here, we started, we finished it. So that's just waiting to be approved. So I don't really have to update that one again. Now, if you're using resources and you're using expenses and you're using steps, these little icons help you navigate directly to those other tabs and onto that particular activity that you want to get updated, okay? So you can do it different ways. You can go right to the tab and start updating, or, you can use these little navigation buttons. So you can use either methodology, whatever works, whatever makes sense. So if we're in our meeting and we're talking about this activity and we can see there are resources, this particular activity, you can see there's no expenses. Okay, so you can kind of mix and match. And we tried to make this really helpful in terms of how you do your updating. So if I know a little bit more about what we got done on the steps, for example, in here, so I navigated over. Okay, so you might be saying, well, gosh, that screen looks a heck of a lot different. Okay, so what we designed here is the ability to do filters independent on each of the tabs. Again, it's completely up to you on how you want to use these different screens. So if I want to get back down to just that one vendor, I can go ahead and apply that same filter, okay? So you can do it that way. And it's totally up to you, whatever works best. So now if I navigate over, you'll see, whoops, did I do it right? I think I did it wrong. Let me go ahead and actually apply it. Okay, there we go. And then you can mix and match and navigate across. So, so these are the resources on that activity. And the question really is how much work did we get done, right? So here's my budget. Do I know how many hours were achieved? I may not know those right at the time, so I can always do that updating later. But if I know that I've spent 20 hours, I can go ahead and get those in there. I may also know that I got some steps actually achieved, okay? So issued for construction, issued for review, issued for, oh, my brain is not working, issued for, I don't know what the I is. Okay, I can get my updates in there. And just like you would, you can either complete them or you can progress them to some sort of weighted percentage, of course. And again, we can get some notes in there. We got this started. Oops, sorry, clicked wrong. Okay, here we go. We got this started, should finish this week. Okay, so very much the same in terms of the way that the notes are done. Oops, let me pop that open. I did it wrong. Okay, yeah, perfect. Very much the same little methodology is what you do on the activity to save the note. And I think it's just misbehaving for me. So anyway, you get the idea. Oops, it's probably, oh yeah, that's good. Okay, excellent. So you do your updates, you work through those, and of course I can update my expenses as well. Okay, so in this example, I had some expenses updated and I can update further, or I can do them after. Okay, so that's something, it just depends on how you gather that information. You may collect something from your accounting team and you may punch those in afterwards. That's why we've got those independent filters and the way that you go after the updates. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the updating. So once I'm done, and done might not mean I've got all my updates in. It may just mean I got 5 in right now and I want to go ahead and submit them. You can go ahead and save the progress. And what that does is 2 things. It sends it into P6, into some placeholders, and it also gets it to the approving team. So it does both things. So let me go ahead and give you the idea of what's going on in P6. And then I'll go ahead and approve those. And I can save that layout. I don't think I really changed anything. And let's go ahead and just take a look at what it looks like for the folks in P6. So in P6, what you're going to see is some information about what's been submitted. And I've got to just refresh it because I just saved that, of course. You can see right here, that a CAPPS user has just made a submittal, and it's Nicole. And these are the things that she thinks are ready for approval, and off you go. Okay. So I don't have to approve this right away. It's just going to constantly being fed from CAPPS. And if my process is to approve, let's say every Friday, that works. If I want to approve intermediately, that works as well. Okay, so that's, again, we try to use base functionality that you're using all the time. So I can see some stuff got submitted. So let me take a peek at what else we know. Okay, so we know that Nicole is saying that, hey, these are the start dates that I'm putting in, and I can see right away that, hey, these are kind of late. So you're going to see we're going to start calculating a variance. Okay, we want to send some warnings out. We want to make this easy for someone to pick up where the problems are. Okay, so we're starting to calculate a variance. Now, some things are late, but hey, some things look like they got started earlier, so that's great. So we're going to take advantage of base P6 functionality to identify what's going on there. Now, not only did they start early, which was fantastic, oops, looks like they're finishing late. Okay, so this one, although got started early, looks like Nicole's saying we're gonna finish late. So I can see this right in P6. So I know right away what's going on. Okay, so even if it's not approved or reviewed, I can see what the statuses are looking like right here in standard layouts that you would be working in P6. Now, for those of you who may not have attended what's new in version 19, we also have this new handy tab here with the user-defined fields that you can put in here. So we can also see it in a user-defined field layout. So you can look at it different ways. Okay, so that's kind of handy. It's a nice feature that they've added to version 19. So you can take advantage of that too in your layout. Now, if your team doesn't need someone else to be in the middle and approve it in CAPPS, that's okay too. So I can also look at these. If I'm happy with them, I can approve them right in CAPPS, right in P6 as well. So we can do it both ways. So you're not forced to have a reviewer inside of CAPPS at all. Okay, so it's completely up to you, depending on what makes the most sense for your project. Okay, so I saw those notes. So let's also look at the notes a little bit more. Okay, so we have the notes here. And what you can also see is we're capturing those notes in some notebooks here. And we're not only capturing the notes, but we're also capturing every time we essentially approve and submit these dates and essentially make them part of my current P6 project plan. Okay, so we're gathering that, and you can run statistics and analysis out of P6 off of that if need be. Okay, but we're not trying to make this a heavy-duty workflow approving kind of tool. That was never our intention. If that's something that's truly important to you, it may be reasonable to investigate team member. It's got a little bit more of that functionality, but it's, in my opinion, it's a lot harder to work with. So that wasn't our target. That wasn't what we were trying to achieve with CAPPS. Okay, so there's the submittals. Now, before I go ahead and approve it in P6, I'm going to show you how you can actually review these as a person in CAPPS, looking at them as an approver. So I've got a different login. You saw that earlier. We are sending these to our PM. And whoops, I better type the password right. So it's password protected and controlled in P6. So all the user administration is done in P6 for CAPPS. So I'm logging in, and I'm going to log in as the approver in this case. Okay, So I log in, and as the PM approver, I may have approval access to many vendors. Again, I've got my own filter, just like I showed you earlier, for the things I'm supposed to see. And of course, we're controlling a lot of that right through P6. So I, again, may have been on that meeting or in that meeting, or my scheduler might have told me, you know, okay, I'm going to have my meeting today. I might have a regular routine to meet with Engineering X every Wednesday to touch on their updates. Okay. So I can go ahead and filter whichever way I wish to take a look at the submissions. And I'm going to just filter down to Engineering X, and I can see what's been submitted. Again, I have more than one project that I can be looking at, and perfectly okay to do that. Or again, if I just want to look at one project submissions, I can do that as well. Okay. So those are those same 4 activities. I can see all 4 of them are waiting for me to do my approving, and I can take a look at what's been put in here. Okay, so I can see the updates that have been put in, and I have my own screen, and the way I organize this screen can be the way that makes most sense for me. So I can see if I'm happy with this. If I'm not happy with something, what I want to do is I want to reject. Okay, sorry, I have filtered because I wanted to see, hey, where are we really going off the rails here? Okay, so let me go back to unfiltered. These are all the activities that have been submitted to me that I either have already approved or I still need to approve. So I get to see, you know, all the combo of what I have touched. Now, again, I just want to focus on Engineering X. So let me go ahead and do that. And I can see those activities that were just submitted plus one that I've already approved. So I can just see, you know, what's going on with it. No new updates, but I can see what's going on with it. So I can see right away we've got some stuff not going great. You know, we've got started a little late, obviously. And these are in hours here on this screen. And some started earlier, some start going off the rails, which is not wonderful. I can see what's going on with my labor. So things are looking good on expenses, not so great on labor. So this is kind of a little cheat sheet, if you will, to help the approver understand what's going on. Now, if I'm not feeling like one of these updates is quite correct, I can go ahead and reject it, which means it won't get into the P6 updating fields, if you will. It won't overwrite the actual start. It won't overwrite the actual finish and the resources and so on. It's going to hold them. And I can put a comment in here, okay, that will be available to the updater in this window so they can see why it was rejected. Okay, so that's how you would do the rejecting. So you don't go start clearing their fields. You leave the fields that they put in, but you put in a note as to what you're not comfortable with, or, you know, maybe they forgot to status all the resources, for example. Or this expense looks, on this example, for example, maybe this expense doesn't look right and you want to get them to update it, okay? So you can use this in many different ways as a communication portal on what is going on here. So I can go ahead and say, I think I keep doing this wrong. I think you need, my typing is great, need to revisit the dates. Okay, so you can go ahead and put that in. I'm sure Alexandra's cringing, I'm probably doing this wrong. Here we go, there we go. Now you got it right. And here we go, we've got the update in there. And then again, if that's all that I have time for, okay, And if these ones seem acceptable to me, I can go ahead and say, these are good. So let's let these in. We've got to revisit that one. And this one was already submitted, so I don't even have to have that on the screen. So again, I have the ability to filter inside of here. And if I only have time to look at the submittals and I don't want to review previously submitted, I can hide those. Okay, so we want it to give that flexibility, and that's what we've got there. So if I'm happy with this, I can, again, go ahead and save that. And I've got a rejection there. And not only will the person see it in CAPPS, but the people sitting inside P6, you know, the people doing your heavy duty scheduling, they're going to be able to see what's going on, even with the reviewers' feedback inside of CAPPS as well. Okay, so both are getting inside of here, the approver and the submitter. We're logging both so you can see what's going on. Okay, so here I can see my submitter and I think my approver's on the screen. Yeah, here, let me just move over a little bit so you can see it right here that the EPPM was able to review this. And they've got a little note here and they're not quite ready with this submission. But these other ones were good. Okay. So again, this is something that I can be checking at the end of my day as the P6 person. And I can say, okay, I got a lot of good updates in here. Let me go ahead and get this through. Okay. I'm teasing you a little bit. I'm going to go into CAPPS one more moment. And I'm going to go back in as Nicole, the person who was doing the updates. Too many logins. I can't remember them. Here we go. Okay. And this is what it's going to look like for the person who got a reject. So I can see that obviously something is not quite cool here. I've got this X and I can just navigate to my deviation window and I can see it's highlighting it here and it's letting me know what I need to be fixing up. Okay. I might have more than one. And unfortunately, if I do have more than one, I better take a peek at those and be seeing what's going on. So this was the one actually that I just did, but I can see I have another one, unfortunately, that's hanging out there that I need to take a peek at. Okay, so this is how I can fix it up and go ahead and action that and get that back into P6. So to close the loop on all these updates, we give the control, the final control has to live with your P6 folks. So like many of our software tools, if I'm happy with everything that's come through and I want to get that in there because I want those updates to be reflective as quick as I can see I've got some that just came in. I took a peek at them. I'm good with them. If I'm good with them, I can clear this and ask it to, whoops, my mistake, ask it to run through here, through the go. I did the wrong thing. Let me ask it to go ahead and accept all those updates and do all the rework of the data and through the go button. So when it's done, it should update this. So let me go ahead and refresh this. And it's fairly quick, but I mean, if you have a lot of updates, it might take a few minutes. And you can do this one project at a time, or if I reviewed 3 or 4 projects and I'm cool with them, I can send the go, whoops. There you go. That's what happens with the live demo. Looks like it kicked me out. Let me get back in. And I don't remember this guy's login. Sorry, guys. I got to check my security. This is the problem with too much security. Let me go back to my security portal and get my login to that. And I had this funny thing. I don't know if this is a version 19 problem, but I did have this problem with it doing some strange behavior. So hopefully it's not a version. Yeah, sorry, that's me. Let me go ahead and get my login. I have way too many logins, so I never remember them by heart. So sorry about this. Let me go ahead and get that. And get that in so you can see the last piece of the puzzle where it runs in the actual changes, and then you're off to the races. You've got your status updated. Okay, here we go. So it should be logging back in, and hopefully it ran through. And then what we'll do is we'll just refresh it, and then you'll see the changes. And then what that does is, a moment ago, those were set as I information, meaning they were submitted. It switches it to a check mark on the ones that obviously have been fixed. The X's I didn't have time to fix, so they'll stay as X's, and I'll get them fixed up and then just resubmit. Okay, here we go. Okay, so, okay, good. It actually had a chance to, am I telling the truth? Yes, it had a chance to run through it, so that's excellent. And that little, kicking me out, I think it's something strange with my layouts. I was having that problem the other day as well in here. So, it runs through, it goes ahead and accepts the data, which means it takes the dates that I put in and it puts them into the actual start, actual finish, puts things into my suspend and resume, updates my remaining duration, all those things that you would do in P6. It goes ahead and does them all for you. And as I mentioned, it puts a little note. We capture the history in the notebooks so you know what's going on. And if ever you need to take a look at what happened with those updates, you can take a look at those things. Okay. And then, of course, what you do in P6 is your usual. You run your F9, so you reschedule, and then just like you would do in P6, you would start to take a look at anything that's overdue. So what hasn't been submitted? Did we have any deviation requests? So, things that are going off the rails, we can put in a deviation request. So you do your usual processes in P6, and that was a really big thing for us when we were looking at this. So this is letting me know that these are overdue. These need to be actioned, okay? So I could actually put a note in the reviewer so it's right in the person's login that they got to get these updated. Okay, so I think I've given a pretty quick overview of CAPPS. Hopefully you've had a chance to see some things that look pretty interesting. Our whole objective, as I mentioned, is to make sure you can get your updating done quicker without adding a lot of onerous processes, lots of new things to learn, and so on. Okay, so I think there's some questions, which is great. So let me go ahead and get to look at some of the questions, and then I'll give you a few examples of some clients that have taken advantage of CAPPS in some flavor. We've got a lot of different clients using either the CAPPS that you're seeing or some sort of variant of it. Believe it or not, it's up to our version 9 because we've had many different flavors of this software tool. And we just keep refining it because what we find is so many people struggle with updating. And that's why most of you probably know that we have a lot of different updating tools in Airmont's add-on toolkit. Okay, so let me go ahead and see what questions have come through. Let's see if I can pick them up real quick. Okay, costs. So I'm not sure exactly what the question is here. So we don't have one tab for costs. As you saw, we have resources, plus we have expenses, because those are the two things that control costs. But I like the idea of summarizing total cost on the deviation. We don't have it right now, but I definitely think it wouldn't be that hard for us to add that to the mix. Issued for information. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yes, thank you. Yes, IFI, issued for information. I only had 3 coffees this morning. I guess I need another one. Okay, thank you. So indicators. So there was a question about what are those indicators actually trying to show us in the deviation. So we're trying to use the same indicators that you see in P6. And the idea there is usually the blue star means something is going very well. The stop sign means things are not going very good at all. And the green means you're on track. And the yellow means there's some sort of warning. Okay, so we do a warning if we're a little off the rails, and that is configurable. Okay, so you saw in the critical screen also, there was critical, and we actually flagged near critical, and that can be configured. Okay, so if your team thinks near critical is within 2 weeks, that can be configured to your specific requirement. Buying CAPPS is what I meant. Okay, sorry. What is the cost? Oh, okay, sorry. I might have misunderstood one of the questions. So the way that we sell CAPPS is named user. So you need a named user for each person logging in to CAPPS, whether they're submitting or whether they're approving. But you don't need a full-blown P6 license. You need what is called a web service or an API license. Okay, so it's a fraction of a P6 user price. So that's another thing that's kind of handy. Plus there's a fee for the CAPPS piece that we've built on. And it's not all that expensive. It's on a subscription basis. You're probably looking at anywhere from $10 to $20 a month for one user. Okay, so we do a subscription base. And the range depends on the volume, of course, of users. Okay, so if you think this looks like an interesting tool for you, we'd be happy to work through some additional ideas on pricing. Okay. So I think those were all the questions so far. So thank you so much for those questions. And certainly, if you have any more, go ahead and chat them in. So I'm just going to wrap up real quick. So I wanted to touch on a few case studies that we've got with CAPPS. So years ago, so when we first started building this tool, which is, we started with one of our key clients, so Petro-Canada or SUNCOR Energy now. And what they wanted was they wanted something to allow their PMs and their engineering leads to do their updates. Because the folks at the job site, at the plant, were just so overwhelmed with all the projects. So we built this tool for them initially, and of course it's grown since then. And their process was they needed to get the updates done every 2 weeks for dates. That was mandatory. But costs, they rolled out and just update it once a month, okay? So that worked really great. And what they found was this really helped make sure that they were avoiding issues. So that was a big, big win for them. And tracking offsite work, so their remote engineering companies, they were able to get a lot better handle on how they were making out on their tasks. So that was a big win for them. Because before that, it was, through emails and things like that. And they just weren't getting those updates to management in time. So we have another large EPCM company. We have a confidentiality with them, so I can't give you the name. But what they found is that now their team of 100 PMs spread all across their country are able to get their updates in. And they've moved from monthly updates, which were really a big struggle. They were even struggling to get monthlies in. They're now able to get every 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks in. And now their cost control has really improved. So, and they're just a new user. They've been only using it for a few months. So the impact of it is really, really quick. We also had another user who wanted specifically to allow their engineering team to update the number of drawings in each package. So this was step updating, 100% step updating. And they were using physical percent complete. And what this did was they found that it shrank their turnaround time on an engineering package by over a week. So that was a real big win for them, just by getting the engineers to do all the updating in the steps. So those are some key case studies. So really, I think it's quite a small amount of money. If you think of $10 to $20 per month for someone to do updates when you're working on a mega project, it's a very small amount of money to make sure that you're getting those updates in quickly. So some of the feedback we've got from the users, that it's really easy to use. And I think this version, even more with all the ability to move columns around and whatnot, is going to be even easier. So in terms of getting updates done, it's very fast. And so some of the feedback is I can get these done every day. And it only takes me 15 minutes to get them done every day. In terms of the collaboration, which of course that's what we're all about, right? Our projects, we need that collaboration. The engineers now can see exactly what they're supposed to be working on. So that's also helpful because they can see those criticalities and the due dates and stuff like that. So that is self-serve. So if the schedule changes, they don't have to wait for a report. So they can just get in and start, organizing themselves much, much more readily. Of course, costs. So not everyone uses costs, but of course, the idea of being able to not have so many big meetings with 10, 20 people around the room, that's so expensive. So now we can get these updates done. So it's much quicker. And being able to see the updates and earn value, now you can really use those sorts of things. So that's some of the feedback that we've got so far on it. And of course, in terms of identity, because we can use the deviation request and put an issue in right there, that's a big win. Even if the issue doesn't blow into something big, which would be great, you can highlight it, which is really what we need to be doing. And in terms of resourcing, you can get those updates in. And it's very simple. You don't need a lot of coaching on how to do this. Okay, so I don't see any other questions just now. So if there aren't any, that's great. But if you do think of some questions after, again, don't hesitate to reach out. So I do want to thank you for spending the last hour and 5 minutes with me and with the Emerald team. What we really focus our energy on is not just getting you P6 licenses in your hand and leaving you to your own device. We have a lot of tools that we've built to try and make your P6 work better for you, try and make your unifier work better for you, and really integrate and make the schedule a living, breathing document. It's so important in the kind of projects we're all doing now. Again, no problem. If you haven't thought of any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Here's my contact info. If you're in other parts of the world, again, we've got other contact info. And of course, you can always reach out via our website. And hopefully you saw something that looks interesting. If you do struggle with updating, really, don't hesitate to reach out. We have a TAPS tool, and we're doing our new version tomorrow, which is a fantastic quick updating tool. We've got CAPPS, as you saw. We also have P6 Loader. You can use Excel to do the updates and load those in. We also, of course, sell the team member tool as well. So we really know updating can be such a big struggle, and we want to make sure that you can get those done. We do integrations too. So, if updates need to come from other systems like your SAP, your Maximo, we specialize in that too. So ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure that you can run your projects as best as you can. So I'll stay on the line for a little bit longer if you do have any other questions. And if not, thanks so much for joining us, and talk to you soon.